about how Thrifting Judaica allows me to connect to a Jewish community that I never had. So I actually grew up in a very small conservative Christian town in Central Florida. I did go to a synagogue very briefly when I was a child for Sunday school, but it was really small. And for the most part, while I'm still friends with a lot of those people, for the most part, that was really the only Jewish community I had, were the few kids that I met at Sunday school, and that was really it. If, in my elementary school, I was usually the only Jewish kid in my class. And in my grade year as well, there were two of us. So it was hard to find those kinds of connections as a kid. So as I've gotten older, being able to thrift Judaica has allowed me to just connect with a community that I kind of wish I had been a part of, and to be able to learn more about where some of these things are coming from. So very briefly, because I'm sure at this point we all kind of have an idea of what Judaica is, but they're just things pertaining to Jewish life and culture. So they can be things like menorahs, mezuzahs, candle holders for Shabbat, kippahs, things like that, jewelry, anything really that you can think of. I personally would argue that anything bagel related is also Judaica, but that's just personal. My family has several bagel themed artwork at our home, so I'm personally a fan. So why I started doing this, it was completely accidental, how I started it at least. I saw a menorah at a thrift store that I thought was absolutely beautiful. It caught my eye immediately, and I knew that I had to have it. And I just didn't like seeing it sitting alone on a shelf and not being utilized for what it's supposed to be used for. So a few weeks later, I ended up finding two more, and it just kind of snowballed from there. And I just started bringing anything and anything I could find home that seemed like it related or was Judaica. So, this allows me to do a few things. I'm able to build a community with other Judaica thrifters, and I can talk more about them in a little bit too. Build connections with other Jewish people, whether they're old friends and things like that. I've actually had several old friends from undergrad reach out that are Jewish and are so excited about some of the things I found. So, and that has encouraged them to start looking for their own things as well to bring home. So I think that's always really exciting. And it also allows me to learn. I'm able to learn about the history of some of these Judaica pieces, where they came from, what they meant, and potentially who owned them as well. So it's been really cool. So as of this moment, this is my collection. It consists of 8 menorahs, 2 Seder plates, 4 Hanukkah themed bowls or plates. Let's see, a Star of David trinket box, and then a necklace. Oh, and a Torah. So I forgot to include these in the photo. They were completely out of sight, out of mind, because I actually have them on display. They're not in storage. So I forgot to include these in the photo, and I'll talk about them in a little bit. But what I want to do is go through each of the pieces I found, and I'll try to do that as quickly as I can without being like super monotonous about it. But for me, it's a way to connect myself not just to Judaism, but to the community as a whole and the families that had used and loved these items previously. So the very first thing I found before I even thought about collecting anything was this Haggadah. It's teeny tiny, it's wooden, and it's incredibly delicate. So I actually only opened it for the first time very recently because the back pages are disconnected from the spine. So I really don't like to open it. So, obviously I knew it was a Haggadah, but beyond that, I wasn't like scrolling through the pages or anything like that. So, gosh, sorry, my cat is crying. I'm so sorry. I hope you can't hear her as loudly as I can. But so this I thought was super exciting. The first time I like really opened it and looked through it was the other day, specifically so I could talk to you guys about it. And it was owned by someone named William Sapphire. And it's on both the very front and the very last page. You will see that signature. And I thought that was really interesting because while I'm sure there are a ton of William Sapphires in the world, in the DC area, there's actually one very prominent one. He passed away in 2009, and in Rockville, Maryland, which is not very far from the Capitol, which is where I found this at Capitol Hill bookstore, a used bookstore. So William Safire was an author, he was a columnist, he was a journalist, and most notably, probably, was that he was a presidential speechwriter. And he actually earned the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2006 from George W. Bush. So I think this is just such a cool piece. I had no idea it had this kind of significance to it when I got it, aside from it just being a really cool, I mean, Haggadah, I've never seen one like this before. Also in that size, I've never seen a teeny tiny pocket-sized one. I just thought it was really exciting. And I was so happy to realize that it not only had like, I mean, it was culturally significant, obviously, but it has this really cool historical significance, something that's really exciting for being in the DC area. What I plan to do with it, though, I don't know, because obviously it did end up at a secondhand store. However, he does still have living relatives. So if it's possible for me to actually pass this on to his family, I would love to be able to do that. And unless they're the ones that got rid of it, I don't know. But assuming that they didn't and maybe it got lost in an estate sale and just got sent off somewhere, I would love to actually be able to give this to the people who rightfully should own it. But for now, I'm going to hold on to it and just keep it safe until I'm able to figure out how to contact these people. But this was technically the first thing I found. As for the menorah that I saw, this is the very first menorah that I collected. I think it is gorgeous. And it's really what started my collection. It is a mixed metal menorah from the brand Göttinger, which is known for doing silver-plated pieces. So I actually own several Göttinger pieces that are not Judaica, but they're just really beautiful. They're really well made. And so I was so excited to see this. I do know that it was sold in the 90s, but I don't know anything else beyond that. So I think this is beautiful. And one of my favorite things about all the menorahs I have, for the most part, they all still have candle wax in them. And there's something very endearing about that, for me at least. They've shown their love and their use, and I think that's just really beautiful. So I love that I get to have this. This is the very first piece that started it. The second ones, so these were the next two that I found not too long after at a couple different thrift stores. And I put them together for two reasons. One being that I found them at the same time. But two, because I haven't found any discernible information on them. So the way that I'm able to track what these are, where they came from, when they were manufactured, is if it has a stamp on it or a sticker or something. And if it doesn't have that, what I'll do is reverse image search it on Google. So if you've never done that, you'll find a picture, you right click it, and it just says search image with Google. And it will try to find anything exactly resembling that picture. That was very difficult, I found, at least with some of these items. So on the left, super basic, classic design. So it was very hard to find anything discernible about it. So for this one, what I did find was that the closest one like it was designed by someone named Yar Emanuel, I believe. I found a web listing for it, so you can buy one, like a brand new one. Beyond that, I don't know manufacturing date. I don't know when it was first being sold, when this one was sold specifically. I wish I did. For the pewter one, nothing. I got absolutely nothing. I've tried so hard. I've zoomed in on the details. I've zoomed out. I've tried whatever I can. I've searched very specific types of menorahs. I can't find anything, unfortunately. I love it. I think it's gorgeous. It's got a beautiful design, but unfortunately, I don't have any other information on it. And then this one I love because it's just tiny and cute, and I've never seen a small menorah like this before. So I was super excited about this. It most closely resembles the Right Light menorah, which you can see the box on the right. This is actually from an eBay listing for that menorah. It's not quite the same. So if you can see, this has like very straight cups for the candles, and this is rounded. So it's a little different, but it's as close as I could find. That being said, there are a lot of menorahs that I found of this similar size and shape, but they had, rather than this candle holder here, it was up in the middle. You can find a lot that look exactly like that. And specifically, there's an accessory you can buy if you're into American Girl dolls. The American Girl doll Rebecca, who was released in 2009, actually has one of these menorahs as an accessory you can buy with her. So while this is not that, I wish it was, it would be really cool. Um, there's so many like it that you can find. And then let's see. These were also found on the same day, which is why I've included them together. And they were found at two different antique malls all the way down in Melbourne, Florida. So while I was visiting family, whenever I visit family, I pop into thrift stores and antique malls, and I happen to find these two menorahs. They're absolutely gorgeous. The one on the left is from the brand Oppenheim. On beyond that, I have no idea. I've tried looking into the brand Oppenheim specifically. It's very difficult to find any information on it. I know it was manufactured in Israel. That's about it. The movie Oppenheimer is coming out. It has made it incredibly difficult to find anything that's not related to that when you just Google search Oppenheim. So it's been a little bit of a struggle, unfortunately. And I have found other ones by Oppenheim that were manufactured in the 1950s. I don't believe this one is that old, just given the shape that it's in. I think it's held up really well if it is from the 1950s, but I can't be sure, unfortunately. On the right, I only found one menorah that looks even remotely similar to it. And it was not the same at all. The cups on the top were gold and it had a different design down here. But I know that it was a cast iron, so I can assume that maybe this is cast iron. Again, beyond that, don't have a ton I can offer. And then the most recent menorahs I found. So the one on the left was actually very easy because it came in the box that it was sold in. So I was very excited about that. It was sold by Aviv Judaica Imports Limited, which is in Brooklyn, New York, but they do have an online website. Aviv Judaica was founded in 1978, so I know that this is not older than that, but it is also not currently listed on their website. So I know that it's not entirely recent either. And it's covered, I mean, you can kind of see that it's covered in wax. So it got plenty of use, and it was well loved. The menorah on the right is slightly less exciting. I think it's gorgeous, personally, but it's slightly less exciting in that you can buy it on Amazon. I found the exact one on Amazon from the brand Quality Judaica. So it's beautiful. It does, you can't see it in this photo. There's actually a crack down the center. But it is absolutely gorgeous. And you can still purchase one today. And then, let's see. So let's get into our Seder plates, of which I only have two right now. I would love to have more, but right now we have two. So the one on the left, I actually found an identical one being sold online, and it says that it's made by KM Ceramics. Mine doesn't have any kind of stamp or anything like that on it, so I don't actually have anything else that I can offer. I don't know what year it's from, but it's beautiful. The one on the right, I actually thought was really interesting. As you can see on the very far right, it was made by Target. I had no idea Target ever sold a Passover collection, but I actually found a blog post talking of a woman who was collecting these plates from Target. And it seems as if the last time these were sold was around the 2015 era, around there. So this is from 2011. It's porcelain. It was sold by Target. And I think that's really cool. I'm sad they don't still sell things like this. I have never seen anything in Target, a Passover collection from Target. But I have seen their Hanukkah collections, and they're super fun. I do actually have several of their menorahs. And then these are the 4 Hanukkah dishes that I have. If anyone knows what in the world on the left, what that could be for, please let me know. I have absolutely no idea. The only reason I classified it as Hanukkah was because of the menorah ribbon, but I really don't know what could be served at Hanukkah traditionally that is in a shaped bowl like this with a tiny spoon. I was so blown away, but I mean, obviously I had to have it, but I truly have no clue what it could be used for. Quite loved it. Obviously, there is a little chip on the side that I didn't realize was there until I brought it home, but I'm at a true loss for it. And every time I tried to find anything on it, all I got were reverse image searching it at least. All I got on it were blue bandanas that looked kind of similar. So I got nothing, unfortunately. So if anyone knows anything, I would be so appreciative because I truly have no clue. For this plate, the second plate here, it actually has its original sticker on it, and it was sold at Home Goods. So this is a mass-produced plate that was sold at just Home Goods. The sticker itself, you can tell, is an older style, if that makes sense. The font and the style of the sticker are older. So I know that it's not recent. It wasn't sold recently. Home Goods was actually opened in 1992, so I know it's not older than that. But I would guess it also hasn't been sold in stores in the last 10 or so years either. So my guess is probably around like somewhere 2008, 2009 to like 2012-ish is probably around the time when this was sold, solely based on what the sticker looks like. And I know that's kind of a reach, but that's all I got to work off of. For the menorah bowl or plate, all I know is that it was from the brand Gift Co. So if you flip it over, there's a very, very light stamp on the bottom that says Gift Co. That's all I've got from it. I found several others online, but they also don't have much information. And then for the latke plate, that is actually from the brand The Kosher Cook, and you can buy it on Amazon today. So this is a very recently manufactured item. And then we have our decorative plates. So on the left, I wish I had more information on it. It's so beautiful, this Jerusalem plate. And I know that anything Jerusalem/Israel related may not necessarily count as Judaica, but a lot of people do feel very tied to Jerusalem. So I did specifically get this as Judaica. There is no stamp on it. There's nothing on it. I haven't found a replica of one. So unfortunately, I don't actually, and there's no artist signature on here either. So I have no idea where this came from, unfortunately. But the rabbi reading the Torah was actually painted by Eugenia Walsh. I've only found one other that actually has where it came from on it because it has a stamp on the back, and it was sold in 1979 from the brand Lionel Studios. Mine does not have the stamp on the back, so it's possible mine was manufactured elsewhere, but the artist is still the same. You can see her signature here. And then I think this might be the last of what I have are the decorative boxes. The decorative box is easy in that I couldn't find anything on it because it is such a like simple design that it's hard to find anything else. That I've found ones that you can paint yourself. I haven't found this exact one. And then for the Torah, it was designed and made by metal worker Gary Rosenthal. It's made of copper, bronze, marble, and glass. And I believe it was made in the year 2000. So this is actually a really cool piece. I just think it's really beautiful. And then the necklace that's around it, again, can't find much else on it. I found an identical one on Etsy, but I don't know who manufactured it. I don't know how long ago it was made. So unfortunately, I can't really discern much information about who previously owned it, other than they liked gold jewelry. So I do have some criteria for what I take, though I do try to take everything I can, but I am a little limited. So size and price are really the biggest factors for why I can't take something. So I've found really beautiful but giant posters, giant framed posters that I just don't have a place for. And they're usually more expensive. And then I've found some things that are gorgeous and that I would love that are well out of budget. There was an estate sale in the heart of DC several months ago, and I went because I saw them listing several menorahs online, but they don't list pricing on their website. So I went and I looked and I found the menorah that I specifically really wanted. And I looked at the price and it was $400. So I kindly put it back and never touched it again. And hope that whoever did end up with it loves it. So some things just aren't really feasible for me. Also, if there's Hebrew on it, this really only happened once, but I can't read Hebrew. So for me, if I simply don't know what it says, it's hard for me to justify paying for it if I really don't know what it says or what it is for. Again, that's really only happened once. I just had no idea what I was looking at, so I couldn't justify spending the money on it. And then if it's in a condition that I don't feel that I can personally restore in my own way or time, then I won't take it. I mean, that's kind of the nature of thrifting, unfortunately. But yeah, those for the most part, though, I will try to take everything I find. So right now, when it comes to what I do with it, as of right now, nothing. But that will hopefully change soon. I'm currently working with a nonprofit that is listed on the screen. They're based in Atlanta, Georgia, I believe. And I'm hoping that I can bring their practices of collecting and thrifting Judaica and bring that to DC. So right now they're doing that in the Atlanta area, and I would love to do that in DC. That's means a lot to me. And so what they do, as you can see on the screen, they collect thrifted Judaica and then redistribute it to Jews in need. So I would love to be able to do that. That's something that means a lot to me. So hopefully someday I can actually do something like that. And then really quick, let me stop sharing my screen. How do I do that? There we go. Sorry, I have not used Zoom in quite a while. I did actually go thrifting today. So while I don't have any information on these because I did just bring them, I did find 2 more menorahs. So I'm super excited to learn about these, where they came from. This one is missing one of the cups, but it seems like it's something that's relatively easy to repair. Beyond that, I mean, I'm super excited to learn more about them and eventually pass them on to other families who can use them and appreciate them. I think that'll be really exciting. So that is all I have. If you have any questions, comments, anything, let me know.
So the Judaica menorah is fascinating. The 90s makes a lot of sense. I mean, it looks like it has charms on it, basically. Like it.
Yeah, I mean, they're not, and I'll screen share again so I can just show you. They're not, so they're all like welded into it. They're not, let's see. Come on. There we go. It's very gaudy. But like in the best way.
Yeah.
I'm obsessed with it. I think it's so much fun. All of these it has the lions, it has its own little, I just think it's so much fun. It's got the dreidels. It's a great piece. It's so cool.
Yeah, I mean the two-tone metal and stuff, it's really an interesting one. I wonder if the small dish with the Star of David, I wonder if it's a Havdalah candle rest. I think that I don't know. Like I've never really seen a Havdalah candle rest like that. I've never used many, so I don't know if like Adele or Amy might have some thoughts later about whether that's possible. But
it's the spoon that throws me off.
Oh, they're actually okay. So that actually is with it.
Yeah, it's tied into it. It's a teeny spoon that's just tied.
Okay, so it's not a Havdalah candle.
I'm confused by it.
But yeah, that's fascinating.
Applesauce.
Potentially, yeah. I thought it could
here,
potentially
Marcy just
be
said
something
honey
like
dish.
that.
That's a good one too.
True.
So this is kind of about that Jerusalem plate, and this is kind of related to. So in one of my previous jobs, I was an archivist at the National Toy Train Library, which is part of a toy train collectors association. And so it's a library where they collect like catalogs and things from toy train manufacturers so that they have research material to look at the history of the things that they're collecting, basically, right? So they, but there is, like, when you get to a certain point in, like, starting in the 60s or 70s and then going well into the 90s and early 2000s, there's this kind of gap when you're trying to do this kind of like business or commercial research that you're doing to try to identify these products, because the stuff, like, people haven't considered it worthy of research quite yet. And so the like printed research material wasn't necessarily saved by anyone. And then on the other hand, none of it has made its way onto the internet, and it may never make its way onto the internet,
Right.
because it wasn't retained. But it's a really fascinating question that I have always been fascinated with, about this like gap, this digital gap kind of.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting to see that brought up in the context of doing like research on late 20th century Judaica as well. And the other thing is tourist souvenirs. So like this decorative plate, this looks like it's probably from the 90s or the 2000s to me. But there are other things like this that are often marked, like Jerusalem and Israel, that were tourist souvenirs
Yeah.
originally, right? And
Right.
manufactured in Jerusalem and in Israel, and then people would bring them back. And I
Right.
know that Rabbi Judd, who did our first project, has a collection of a very specific type of metalwork that was produced in Jerusalem in the 50s, and it is colored. Like, it has little colored space, like the spaces on the metalwork are colored in.
Okay.
And it was like only produced as tourist stuff in the 50s, and it's very interesting. Nowadays, right, there are people who used to make that tourist stuff are also like selling online and at like shows at synagogues in the United States and stuff, craft shows and stuff. So it's a little bit more amorphous, but yeah, that's kind of what that made me think of. And I think in general, I'm really interested, and I don't know if this is something that you can talk a little bit more about, and I don't want to speak for you in terms of how I'm about to describe kind of what you said initially. But so in the first program with Rabbi Judd, we talked about um, using things that weren't manufactured as Judaica for Jewish ritual practice. So we made kind of a reference to conversion and referring to like finding the true soul of a pair of candlesticks, like their highest
Yeah.
form as Judaica. And I'm really interested in that idea and the way it connects with the kind of significance of Judaica for you, and in the idea that like this Thrifting Judaica allows you to participate in like the Jewish nation in the sense of like imagined communities. And I can't remember that author's name, but the idea of kind of imagined communities, and that this is a way that you can participate in which you haven't always had the opportunity to do in the way that you might have wanted. And that was a really interesting connection to me, and the way in which, yeah, I mean, and it speaks to kind of the role that Judaica plays in like Jewish ritual practice and our true and imagined relationships with objects. And yeah, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, but that's something that really grabbed me.
Yeah, I mean, so I actually want, I mean, you mentioned candlesticks, and I've never participated in Shabbat, very relaxed religious family. So we've never participated in Shabbat. So I didn't know until very recently that there wasn't necessarily anything that had to be special about the candlestick holders. I did not know that until maybe like a couple weeks ago. And I'm kind of kicking myself now because I've seen so many pairs of candlestick holders that would be perfect for families who do celebrate Shabbat. And there's one pair that I saw a few weeks ago that I can't get out of my brain. And there were these silver, like dark tarnished silver candlestick holders that had these little gold bows on them. And all I could think of, like, if I celebrated Shabbat or participated in Shabbat, I would love those as my candlestick holders. They were just cute. They were fun. There's something that maybe like a little girl would have appreciated. And I think things like that are just so unique and exciting to be able to apply your Judaism to other objects that may not have necessarily had it before. And so I will absolutely be taking those things into consideration now when I go out and go thrifting and go looking for these things. And if those candlestick holders, they're probably not still there. But if they happen to still be there, I would absolutely add them to my collection to pass on to a family that loves stuff like that loves like the more kitschy, girly, or feminine, whatever objects to add to those kinds of collections. I think that's just so much fun. So yeah, I love that you mentioned the candlestick holders. I think that's one of those things that I had never thought about before because again, I don't participate in Shabbat. So yeah, I'm the thought of including more things like that is so exciting.
Excellent. So I mean, thank you so much again. I think this is a really wonderful food for thought.